Writers, this is an important day in your lives as writers. You're about to start gathering and sifting through ideas for stories. Here's the most important thing I can teach you. Just as it works for almost every other type of writing, writers get ideas for fiction by paying close attention to the small moments in their own lives. Let me tell you a secret. When I was in seventh grade, I decided I wanted to write fiction. The school I went to didn't have a regular writing workshop, so my notion of how fiction writers worked came from my imagination. I thought fiction writers just looked up at the clouds and imagined make believe stories about exciting adventures and heartbreaking dramas. But as I grew up and matured as a writer, I learned the truth about how fiction writers get their story ideas. I realized that fiction writers often get story ideas from observing not the clouds, but real life. Did you know that S.E. Hinton got the idea to write The Outsiders when she was 15 years old, and one of her friends got called a greaser and beaten up while walking home from school? She was so angry about what happened to her friend that she went home and started to write a story inspired by the incident. And did you know that John Green got the idea for The Fault in Our Stars from a friend of his who was sick? I bet he wrote an entry about one of the times he spent with her, and then later, sitting at his desk, he reread his notebook, recalled that moment, and thought, there's a story here. Of course, when I say that writers get ideas for writing by paying attention to their own lives, I don't mean that writers just record exactly what happened and call the text fiction. When Essie Hinton raced home after hearing the news about her friend to start pounding out her story, she didn't record everything that happened. Her friend wasn't named Ponyboy, and there wasn't really a fire. Fiction writers do, however, pay close attention to their lives. They cup their hands around tiny true particles of their lives and they wait. Sometimes, while they wait, the idea for a story grows. And here is my biggest tip of all. The imagination that really matters to fiction writers is this. Fiction writers like Essie Hinton, John Green, any fiction writer that you know, can find significant stories in the most ordinary, maybe even boring moments from their notebooks. And you, as budding fiction writers, can do this too. You can write a small moment story from your lives and anything else you have seen or done, and you can say, wait a minute, this is giving me an idea for a fiction story. Maybe I could write a fiction story about. Let me see what I can do here. I'm going to think about a small moment from my life, remembering some of the strategies I learned in the past from getting small moment stories. Some of the strategies you learned in sixth grade, or maybe even elementary school. Like one of my favorite strategies is to write about times when I was feeling a strong emotion. And I think that's a particularly good strategy here because I know that strong emotions can make for great fiction stories too. One time I remember that I had some really strong emotions when I was in seventh grade, and I was walking up to Miss Wurr's classroom, and all of the students standing outside started singing a song about what a goody goody I was. I was so embarrassed. I'm going to try to write that story now as a small moment story, telling it bit by bit, but also remembering in the back of my mind that I'm on the lookout for ideas for possible fiction stories. There she is, I heard someone whisper as I stepped up to the crowd gathered around, Miss Wurr's door waiting for the bell to ring. I pulled my backpack up on my shoulder. Then, all of a sudden, I heard this soft singing under a few kids' breath. Goody two shoes. My mouth dried up. Writers, I'm going to stop right there. As I was writing down that story, I realized I don't even need to finish writing it down because I started to get some possible fiction story ideas from my real life story. I started thinking I could write a whole fiction story just about a girl who likes to play by the rules, even though other kids make fun of her for it. Or maybe I could write a story about a kid who changes who she really is so that people will stop making fun of her. But that's not the message I want to convey. So maybe I'm just going to draw a line under my first entry and jot down a couple of little story blurbs, just my thoughts for possible story ideas. Writers, did you notice how first I thought back to all my personal narratives from my past and remembered one of the strategies that works best for me so that I could begin collecting small moments in my notebook? Did you see how I started writing a small moment story? And then, as I got some ideas for possible fiction stories, I jotted those down. Now it's your turn. When you go back to the lesson platform, you will try.